Good afternoon. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Panos Papadiamantis of
Hello, Mark. Thank you
PNOE
so much for
Analytics.
having me here.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How
Did
are
I get
you?
your name right? You was pretty close, right?
It was pretty close, yeah. I'm going to tell you what I normally say to people in these circumstances. That while I was in grad school at Stanford, I was a TA, and the teacher would always announce me to the class last, and he would basically say that, and last but not least, we have our TA from Greece. Whoever is able to pronounce his name, his last name, correctly at the end of the quarter, we will give that person a grade bump. So yeah, congrats, you're getting a great bump.
Wow. I
Yeah.
assume you were disqualified from that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
But anyways, yeah.
When did you graduate from Stanford?
That was in 2016. Yeah.
4 years ago.
Yeah. 3 years ago, I was, towards the end, I was, working at the same time in a enterprise IT company located here in the Bay Area, Nutanix. They're in the hyper-converged infrastructure space. And then I co-founded PNOE with my partner, Apostolos. Totally different space in the space of cardio metabolic testing. But yeah, I will let you lead the conversation.
All right, sounds good. So can you start with by sharing a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Sure, yeah. So currently I am the co-founder of PNOE. I've been working on this company for a little over 3 years now. My background is in mechanical engineering. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. I did my undergraduate degree in Athens, Greece, in the National Technical University of Athens. Right out of school, I started my first company that was in the field of waste heat recovery. Waste heat recovery is the process of capturing exhaust gases from an engine or whatever waste heat like big machinery generates, and converting that into electricity. And we actually built a device that does that more effectively. I did that for about a year and a half, and then I felt that I wanted to go back to school and try my luck here in the US. And so I went to Stanford for grad school, again in the School of Engineering. As I said earlier, towards the end of my studies, I was also working at an enterprise IT company called Nutanix, and there I was doing business development and product management. I always felt during that time that I wanted to do something of my own, and when the opportunity presented itself through my partner Apostolos, we've known each other since the age of 6. Who initially developed the technology, the concept behind the technology. I quit my job. He dropped out of his PhD in Cambridge. That's Cambridge, UK, not Cambridge, Massachusetts. We basically co-founded PNOE. So that's in a nutshell, my professional career to date and my educational background.
Wow, it's quite extensive. So what has been your experience with remote employment, both as a remote employee and employer?
Yeah, so PNOE is a company that largely operates remotely. As a company, we have most of our operations and most of our employees in Athens, Greece, but we do most of our business in the States. We decided to build a team in Athens, Greece, and that was a decision that we took very early on because we initially tried to develop a team here in the Bay Area because I had been here in the Bay Area for quite some time when we started the project with Apostolos, but very quickly we realized that the cost is prohibitive in many cases, and then acquiring and retaining talent, retaining probably more difficult, it's a very difficult task for a company. And so because we both come from Greece, we both did our undergraduate degree in Greece, we decided to go back and build our engineering team there. However, we always knew that most of the business is going to be done here in the States. So from the very early days, we did most of the management remotely. So I have been managing teams and working on product development, marketing, setting up marketing operations, sales operations, you name it, remotely. So I would say that, up to that point, even before COVID, even before this pandemic, I had quite a bit of experience running teams remotely.
Yeah. And just out of curiosity, what's the time difference between here and Athens?
10 hours.
That's
Yeah, it's actually pretty convenient in the sense that when you're going to bed, they're about to start their day, and so you can actually provide some guidance on what needs to happen in case you're working on very short deadlines and whatnot. And then when you wake up, you can get a report from whoever you're working with directly, and it actually alleviates all of this, micromanagement that in a lot of cases founders and managers in general will tend to indulge. So because basically you're sleeping when the entire team is working, so it has that benefit. So yeah, I would say that the Bay Area PST time zone has quite a convenient time difference with Greece.
and also being in IT for many years, I know that generally IT people do not like to be micromanaged.
Exactly. Yeah. When you're calling your developers and you're telling them, hey, can we change this? Can we change that? Then it really starts to get messy. So yeah, that time difference actually gives everyone a block of time to actually do development without any distractions. And then on my end too, which is super important, there's always a window within the day that I can do thinking. There's this window between 5 p.m. PST and 9 p.m. PST when everyone is asleep in Greece, even people who are working US time zones, because obviously we have salespeople, etc., like customer support who are working US time zones, but even they are not up between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. PST. So this is actually a very good chunk of time where you're not talking to anyone from operations, and you can think of strategy, think of, where are we heading? You don't have any distractions, and this is super important. And I feel the delta when I go back, because obviously when I'm back, I need to, spend time with the team, be present at the office and so on. Totally different workday. You're constantly being bombarded with different requests, meetings, and so on and so forth. So this is certainly a very big advantage.
Yes, I would imagine. So what do you think is the future of remote employment, and what do you think can be done differently to make it more effective?
Well, I think even before this pandemic, a lot of the world was moving towards remote employment.
Mm-hmm.
The pandemic was simply a very potent accelerating factor. But it kind of revealed what's something that in tech, at least, we had kind of understood, that it's not really important for everyone to be in the office all the time. Being in the office all the time can actually be a significant burden for a lot of people because of commuting, because of the fact that there are several cases where you want to hang out with people and meetings, ran over when you're doing them in person and whatnot. So as far as my team is concerned, and as far as several other teams that I'm in touch with, like fellow founders from YC and whatnot, are concerned, they have seen productivity actually going up because of what has happened. Obviously, there are disadvantages in this current situation. It's very hard to build culture. It is very hard to maintain high morale and communicate things to people because you only have engagement through Zoom or some other teleconferencing tool. So yes, certainly I'm not saying that this is how the world should continue to work, but I do think that moving forward, remote employment is going to be a much bigger chunk of someone's professional life, if not the majority of someone's professional life. And I think it's also a great thing from a cost standpoint. Like obviously companies need to spend way less on real estate, especially if we're talking about companies in very expensive places like the Bay Area, New York, and you name it. But also, if from the employee standpoint, when you're not obliged to be living in San Francisco or downtown Manhattan in order to be close to your office, you have the ability to spend way less and have much better quality of living in a suburban area. And this is actually a trend that is being documented these days. Like a lot of people are fleeing urban settings because they can work remotely, and it works as fine.
Yeah, no, I'm hearing that from a lot of CEOs and CIOs that they're saying the exact same thing. And just out of curiosity, do you have an office in Athens, or do your Greek
Yeah.
employees work remotely also?
Yeah, so we do have an Athens. We do have an office in Athens. It's actually, fairly big in the sense that we have our production facility there as well, because we manufacture our device. We obviously have our developers, software developers, marketing people, salespeople in the office as well. But as far as sales go and customer support and some other positions which are not directly related to the production of the device itself, these people weren't coming to the office every day. I would say they were coming to the office a couple of times per month, even before the pandemic started. So for our company, it hasn't been such a big shift. We were operating in a semi-remote basis for quite some time now.
Interesting. And you mentioned you have a device. So do you have embedded developers and firmware developers in?
Yes. As far as the device goes, we do mechanical design, we do electrical engineering design, we do the manufacturing of the device, we do firmware development, and also we do the algorithm, or in other words, software development for the device, all in-house. We're actually one of the 4 companies globally that manufacture medical grade cardio metabolic analyzers. So it's not a device that you can outsource to a contract manufacturer and expect that you're going to get something of high quality. It is certainly something that has a lot of know-how in IP, and like the effort that you would need to put in educating the contract manufacturer and passing on that know-how is, probably better to do it in-house, and that's why we have it in-house.
Very good. So we talked about your device and your product a little bit. Why don't you tell us more? What does your company build, and who is your target market, and
Sure.
what's your journey been like?
Yeah. So as I said, when we started with a technology that my co-founder had developed in his PhD in Cambridge, which basically allows us to build a cardio metabolic analyzer at a much lower cost compared to what devices provide today. So a cardio metabolic analyzer is a device that analyzes your breath, and based on that analysis, we scan your cardiovascular, pulmonary, and metabolic system. In other words, we're scanning how effectively your heart is working, how effectively your lungs are working, and how effectively your metabolism is working. And a lot of people ask, how is that possible? Like, how can you actually do that from someone's breath? The answer to that is it's actually a very well-established method. Measuring oxygen consumption and carbon dioxide production in a person's breath is a method that has been around for about a century now. Back in the 1920s was when the first experiments started with analyzing oxygen uptake and carbon dioxide production. But until today, even though this assessment is so critical and important, it has applications in nutrition because it's the gold standard for assessing your metabolism. So how many calories your body is burning, how many fats, how many carbohydrates. If your metabolism is going down, all of that is measured through a cardiometabolic analyzer. It also scans your cardiovascular and pulmonary health. So if you're developing some sort of subtle ischemic heart disease or COPD, all of that will initially show up in a cardiometabolic test. And so a lot of people ask, why is such a test that is so important and so fundamental, why do so many people know about it, and why even fewer have actually done it? The response to that is that until today, devices were expensive, very difficult to operate, and most importantly, they didn't provide any support to the practitioner, be it a nutritionist, a sports scientist, a cardiologist, you name it. They didn't provide any support to the practitioner when it comes to going from raw data to an actual insight. What is the diet that I need to follow? What is the disease diagnosis, or what is the exercise routine that I need to stick to? So we built a device, but very importantly, we actually built a software infrastructure that takes raw data and actually gives an output that is easy to implement by the end user, instead of simply showing graphs and lines that most practitioners are unable to utilize. In fact, there have been peer-reviewed articles in the literature indicating how difficult it is to analyze cardiometabolic information. It is arguably one of the most complicated analysis in medicine that you can analyze, and we built the analysis process for that. So making cardiometabolic testing accessible is about making the hardware easy to use and affordable, but also automating the analysis and providing the end customer with something that can be easily implemented.
So, I mean, for what you just said, I'm wondering, can it be applied to the current situation where you can detect if someone's at a higher risk of having complications from COVID?
100%, yes. In fact, if you are developing some sort of cardiovascular disease or pulmonary disease that will obviously put you in a much higher risk category if you're infected by COVID-19, this is something that can be detected by a Cardio Metabolic Analyzer. This is why we're actually about to start selling the device to domestic settings as well. Going back to this other part of the question, who is the target market? For the past 2 years, we've been selling this device to gyms, fitness centers, health professionals that deal with fitness and wellness in general. So anything from CrossFit boxes, physical therapy clinics, nutritionists, and whatnot. And we also work with consumer-facing organizations like Whoop, Spartan Racing, and whatnot that drive traffic of consumers to the affiliate locations that have our device. Right now in the States, we work with about 1,000 gyms and fitness centers. But because of COVID and because of all this telehealth and telemedicine evolution, we are beginning to actually sell the device to consumers as well. The cost of the device, if you're buying it as a professional, is going to be $7,500. But if you're buying it as a consumer, is going to be $2,500. So it becomes something like, and this is actually quite revolutionary from a lot of perspectives. It is going to be the first medical grade device that enters your house that can actually diagnose diseases and so on. So and that comes at a cost of a Peloton. So it really opens up a lot of possibilities when it comes to disease diagnosis and disease management.
Wow. And approximately how big is it? The one,
so actually, let me bring one.
Okay.
So this is it. You can see it, and obviously for our listeners, this is close to the size of an iPhone. So that's an iPhone, and this is a device. So it's like a square box. And what happens is that you basically connect the flow sensor, which is something that connects to the mask. You connect the flow sensor to a mask, and then that connects to the box, which is the size of an iPhone. And then you wear the mask and you do a 10-minute test. And that's pretty much all it takes in order to scan all of the things that we discussed.
Wow, I might be driving up to San Francisco to borrow one of those.
Yeah. Come over. Yeah, we have a few devices laying around. So yeah, this is what we're doing, and obviously because our main go-to-market is obviously going after gyms and fitness centers and fitness professionals. What we also developed over the past month and a half is something that we internally refer to as Zoom for Fitness. Mm-hmm. So we built a teleconferencing tool that has all of the features that will basically allow the trainer to provide virtual training much more effectively. So automatic movement detection through your camera, music that is synchronized across all different participants of a live class without the trainer needing to take his speaker, like his phone next to the computer speaker and all that stuff. So really removing all of the clutter that goes into utilizing Zoom or Hangouts or you name it, Skype, to do virtual classes. Yeah, we basically built that because it was a low-hanging fruit for us. A lot of the tech that we've built is our backend, basically, because all of the devices that we have deployed actually send data to our server in real time. So we have a pretty sophisticated backend, and we repurposed a lot of that in order to build a teleconferencing tool that is optimized for the fitness industry. And we take a lot of pride in building that application because this is a product that was conceived in a completely remote setting, has been built in a completely remote setup, and then it will actually be shipped with the team continuing to work completely remotely. So, it kind of shows that you can actually build products and services from scratch while everyone is still working from home.
Wow, that is truly fascinating.
Yeah.
So we talked about the pandemic, and that forced a lot of companies, almost the whole world, to go remote. In the Bay Area, it was, March 16th. You already were remote, but did that cause any challenges or roadblocks that you didn't expect?
Good question. Well, production was obviously something that was never remote, and we obviously had to acquire specific authorizations from the local government in Greece in order to continue to operate. But as I said, other than that, a lot of the team members were already working remotely. So it wasn't that on the spot, like when the pandemic broke out and we started seeing countries around the globe like shutting down. It wasn't that we saw something particularly like we didn't see like a specific roadblock arising at that particular point in time. I do think, however, that as this thing lingers and as we are continuing to work remotely, culture building and maintaining like interpersonal relations is going to be something that will be a challenge, but that's more of a more long-term effect that remote working will have on teams and organizations in general. But if we're talking about like a short-term remote working setup, then I wouldn't think that causes a particular issue for a company like ours.
Oh, that's a credit to how you've built the company. Actually,
Yeah, correct.
So there's companies like Gabriel that help develop, build, and scale products, especially for startups. How important do you think this will be going forward? Once we're out of this situation, that companies that are going to need to hire the right person, and they don't really care where they are, but they need to hire them in a hurry. And you might realize some spikes in sales in the near future.
Yeah. So listen, hiring rapidly is something that is one of the most critical things, irrespectively of whether you're going through a pandemic or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, hands down, human capital is the alpha and the omega for any organization. Going from a startup all the way to governments, human capital is what drives success. You can have crappy ideas, but because you have incredible people executing, you can build iconic companies. And if you look at all of the big, success stories in human history, it's always great people who are responsible for them, right? So, and skills are important, but at the end of the day, it's about culture, it's about, character, it's about all of these things that actually make a person a great fit for the company. And that's something that's hard to find, right? So you actually need to try different people and iterating fast and having access to good talent without needing to keep someone there who's not great, but you're thinking, hey, this guy's there already doing some work. Like, what happens if he leaves and we're not able to find someone rapidly? This is a big problem. Like, and in our company, we've had cases where we were avoiding firing someone, even though we knew that that person wasn't the best fit. That person was actually causing a net negative impact on the company in the long term, but in the short term, that guy was actually writing code or building stuff that was super important for the short term, because we weren't able to find good talent fast. So finding good talent fast is incredibly important. It can actually save you a lot of money. So I do think that this is a super important thing, and I'm sure that everyone who has run a team, anything from a small, small 3 to 5 person team all the way up to a, publicly listed company, certainly relates to that.
Yes, absolutely. So, Panos, this has been absolutely fascinating. Sounds like you've got a great product. You got a great company.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I really want to thank you for your time today. I really enjoyed our talk. And
thank you so much for having me. And if people want to learn more about what we do, they can look us up on Instagram. It's PNOE Analytics. That is PNOE Analytics. That's pretty much it.
Well, thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks so much. You too.
You're just going into your time where you get that free time to yourself right now.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to wake up in about an hour or two, right?
Yeah.
Actually, no, in about 5 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great day.
Yeah. You too. Bye.
Bye.